Hello, this is Mike at GameFromScratch, and welcome to a brand new series here called GamedEVolution. Now, don't worry, I'm not turning this into a Let's Play channel, but what I'm doing here is turning this into a Let's Play channel. Now, the theme here, though, there's a good idea behind this. First off, the videos are going to be quite short. I'm not going to really be showing you much about the games, but I'm going to introduce games that were pivotal in the evolution of game development. That is, games that brought along a brand new concept or a new programming technique or a new thing of historical significance. And the game itself doesn't even need to necessarily have been that popular. Today's isn't, actually. Today's is alternate reality, as you can guess from the title up in front of you. And this game it was brought out in 1985, made by Paradise Programming and published by Datasoft. Now, this is an old 8-bit game. It was originally on the Atari 800XL or the Commodore 64 PCs. It was ported to the Amiga and DOS, and it's the DOS version we'll look at today. And I will say straight up, the DOS version stinks, but it is probably the best one for running and video capturing, so that's the one I'm using today. But it has the soundtrack stripped out. It crashes all the time. It's just a bad implementation. But I can video capture it. And this, again, isn't really that much about the game. It's just what this game brought to the world. So if you want a bit of a history lesson, there's no real value in what I'm about to do. So hopefully this is just entertaining to you or somewhat interesting to you. You can hear an old fart reminisce about his past while putting a little bit of perspective on, where the industry came from and how we got to where we are today. And let's jump right in. So I got DOSBox loaded up. And let's fire this off. If you have never heard of it, DOSBox is this emulated DOS environment for making these older games just run a little bit smoother. Alright, so let's go ahead and yes, I use a joystick. Let me turn the sound down so I don't kill you on this one. Remember this? We used to have to calibrate our joysticks before playing. Alright, so this is the beginning of the game. The whole idea here is you're an alien abducted and taken to an alternate reality, and thus the name. Now, there was a bunch of very revolutionary things in this game. Now, first off, and this is very on vogue today, this game is hard. Like, I almost guarantee I'm going to die within this demonstration just when I'm showing you like 2 minutes of the game. It is brutally difficult until you get your feet going. It's sort of like the roguelikes of today. It has permadeath. It will throw you against a monster that can kick your ass within 2 minutes of playing the game. It is a frustratingly difficult game. And they did a couple of very interesting things while I let the thing play here in the background. One of the first things that was really interesting about this game, but not actually the point of me showing it to you, is this game was modular. And it was one of the first ever modular games out there. I can't think of too many others, and especially none that came before it. And what it is it allowed you to go from one game to the next. So this was meant to be a 5 or 6 part series. So there's going to be alternate reality, the city, and then alternate reality, the dungeon, and then alternate reality, the palace, then alternate reality, the spaceship, or something like that, and on and on. Unfortunately, only 2 got made. So there's only alternate reality, the city, and the dungeon, but it allows you to go from one to the other and then back again. So it's a little bit beyond the idea of carrying a save over like you can with the gold box games from SSI, like Pools of Radiance, Pools of Darkness, Curse of the Azure Bonds, etc. And the concept of carrying a save over is very old. The original Wizardry series did that way back in the early 1980s. Ultima didn't. But the Bard's Tale, etc. A lot of these games allowed you to take a character from game to game, but there aren't very many that allowed you to go from game and back and across. So basically, you're kind of like, it's almost like modding of today, where each chunk of the game was released as a separate part. The only other major game I can think of, at least from the era that did this, was Might and Magic. I think it was 5 and 6, Clouds and Heroes of Xeen. Those allowed you to basically, the 2 games went together to make one mega game. And that's kind of the process they went through with this game. So that was definitely a major feature of this one. So let's just go ahead and create a character. I'm just going to create a quick character. And when you come on in, you basically got this spinning lottery wheel. And when you hit space, those are the stats you get. And off you go. No customization beyond that. Welcome to this world you've been dumped at. No instruction, no nothing. So Sorry about the music. I'll mute that down when I'm done playing. Also turn it down. And there you go. I just got attacked. So I'm going to go ahead and leave because he'd kick my butt. Okay, so I'm safe. So potentially that was a fight that we could have died during. Now, the special things about this game, beyond... I think I'm getting attacked again. Yeah, you know what? It's in pirate mode. And that was another thing that was kind of funny about this game, is it would attack you more and more often if you pirated it, and it would also eventually you would be attacked by the FBI, who detected that you were running a pirated copy. Really kind of funny at its time. Now, there's a few things going on with this game. First off, you can see here, I just went into a store and it says we're open from 9 till 21, so 9 to 9. It had a full day-night cycle. Now, this is on 8-bit machines, which was kind of impressive. It had food and water consumption. It had inventory by weight. So if I bring up my inventory, okay, I don't remember the commands. But it had a pretty good simulation, and if I actually stay alive long enough, the night will actually transition from night to day. All right, I'm getting attacked again. Hopefully I can run away because I actually want to show you something very important. So let's leave. All right. So you notice as I'm walking around town here, for an old game, there's something key that's happening here. And that's, yeah, so it's definitely in pirate mode, which is why it's attacking me over and over and over again. But I wasn't walking one step at a time. I'm actually walking based off of my current carrying weight and my current strength. So the amount that I walk by is statistically calculated. And that isn't so much the, you know, the big thing that's going on here, but it is sort of a byproduct of it. And what this game is, and what makes this game significant historically, beyond the modularity, beyond the simulation, beyond the permadeath, the difficulty, and all those things, was it's raycasting. So this is creating, you know, it ultimately looks like a 2D game per se. It's 2D sprites for sure, but your world is generated by a 3D raycasting engine. So raycasting, I'll explain it. Actually, I'll exit out the game now because I'll just keep getting attacked and it's going to be frustrating. But raycasting was essentially the way 3D was done when 3D started. Wolfenstein 3D was sort of credited as being the first raycasting game, but it wasn't. Even ID Software had a game before Wolf 3D that they used, Maze or something like that, that used raycasting, but it was the 3D mechanism before Quake and Doom took over with the BSP, and it still actually used raycasting to a certain degree. And the concept was pretty simple, actually. The big way of doing 3D graphics in this world is ray tracing, and the idea goes something like this. So let me just draw you an illustration. So let's picture that you've got a 3D scene of some kind. So let's go here, and let's say I've got a light, and then my box in 3D, like so. Lovely drawing going on here. So this is my 3D scene. So I got these two lights in my scene, and then what you generally have is a camera that's picking it all up. Okay, so here is your 3D world. So you've got two light sources, a box, and a camera that detects it all. Now the way ray tracing works is basically the source of light comes from here. So all light sources shoot out rays, hundreds or thousands of them, depending on the fidelity of your simulation. And these rays fly off into the scene until they hit something, such as this surface. And then that surface has properties such as, you know, Pong shading, or, you know how the diffuse, or this kind of pre-shader, but in the world, the same kind of basic concept. So the materials that got hit had material properties of how they reacted to light. So things like reflectiveness, etc. So then the ray would hit here, and then based on the properties, it would go off. Now that ray now has some color information, so it now says, you know, what's here is white, is red, or whatever, based on what it did. So you do this for every single light that bounces out into the scene and hits whatever. So that is ray tracing. Now what happens is eventually some of these rays are going to bounce and they're going to hit your camera, like so. And enough of them are going to hit your camera that you get a really detailed representation of the world. And so basically, it's all of the lights in your world cast out rays, hit all of the things in your world, and then based off of the level of depth, keep going. And then, you know, so you can have a hall of mirrors effect if you have two shiny surfaces against each other, etc. And that's still essentially how ray tracing works today. Now the challenge is this can't be used in real time, obviously. This takes early ray tracers of the day, even the free ones such as POV-Ray, or the professional ones like RenderMan that were around at the time, and some of them those are both still around today actually. Those took hours to days to do a single frame of animation. So obviously you're not going to use that in real time for games. So instead what they did was use ray casting. Same premise, so let's just go ahead and make another lovely image. So you got a light, you got a camera, so, and you got your thing to hit, like so. Okay, so it's same world, same concept, but instead of having the light bounce out and hit everything, your camera shoots out. And those rays, in turn, go back. So you're kind of doing the same thing, you're just reversing it. The thing is here, now you've only got basically however many rays you want to cast out from your camera. Generally, God, it's been a long time since I did this, but I think it basically was 1 per pixel of resolution. So if you had a 320 by 240 game, you would send out that many rays, but it may not actually have been 1-to-1. But regardless, instead of having, you know, one light may cast 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 rays, here you're only casting out as many as are going to hit the camera, and you're tracing them backwards instead. Well, that was how Wolfenstein 3D ultimately worked, but going back to alternate reality that we looked at today, it was the first game to use this particular system. Now, one thing you may have noticed when we were playing it is the screen itself that we were looking through, the display, was like 1/9 of the screen. It was only like the middle third of the screen centered. And obviously that's going to keep the ray count way down, which is enabling this to run on ancient machines as it was. And at the same time too, there's a lot of optimization there in that obviously there's no lighting, so all you're doing in this case is actually casting out until you hit something. So your lighting is not even, unlike ray tracing, this doesn't matter and this doesn't matter. So really all you're doing is casting out rays until you hit something. So if we look at this from a more flat way, say you've got a box here and your camera here, you're just checking to see what hit. And then if your thing was fancy, you maybe had opacity or transparency, in which case, you know, say there was a window here, you might continue casting your rays out through. But for the most part, your ray would just run until it hit something. So the number of rays you had, the amount of detail each ray had to go through into the world was very, very limited compared to ray tracing. But the fundamental idea behind them was still the same. And ironically, we still use this technology today. You know, not ray casting, but ray picking for sure, in which we shoot rays into the scene, into a 3D scene, you know, to determine if you know, if our mouse currently, if we click somewhere, we project it in the scene to see if there's something in the scene at that particular coordinate, or artificial intelligence does basically sort of a ray casting approach to see if anything is in its field of vision. So amazingly enough, the technology for this stuff, the first implementation, as far as I know, of a ray casting engine goes back to 1985, and it is Alternate Reality, The City by Paradise Programming. Now, it's one of those things, you can actually check it out. You can download it. It's on the Abandonware site. The one you saw today, obviously, don't download it. It's got an anti-piracy thing in that causes you to get attacked all the time. But ironically, the real version that doesn't hurt you that badly still will result in you being attacked all the time. So I hope you enjoyed that. That was a look at 1985's Alternate Reality and its first implementation of raycasting, among a couple other really cool things it brought to the table. So it's kind of amazing how much power or how much or how cool some of these things they did back in the 8-bit world, where we're talking, 48 kilobytes of usable RAM, or on the Atari 800 XL, or 64 kilobytes, thus the name, on the Commodore 64, and they're pulling this kind of stuff off. Extremely impressive. Hope you enjoy this, and I hope you enjoy this series. Let me know if you want me to keep doing them. I've got a couple more old games in mind to bring them up and show you the technique that was used in them. If this was incredibly boring, let me know and I won't bother keeping going. Hope you enjoyed that. See you later. Bye.